The Pacific Dawn slides into Vanuatu's Port Vila harbour. On board are 2,000 mainly Australian passengers. Local traders frantically prepare for the onslaught. The visitors will spend $400,000 in just 8 hours in port. But there's one hard economic reality. Despite this weekly splash of cash by the cruise ships, Vanuatu cannot survive on tourism alone. A couple of years ago, an international survey declared Vanuatu to be the happiest place on earth. And while that may be so, when you move away from the cruise ships and all the tourist trinkets here, you find a very different country. By Western standards, Vanuatu and many other South Pacific island states are nations in poverty. Here, only 1 in 5 people have access to electricity. If you want basic health care or any form of education, you have to pay for it. And like many other countries in this region, people living in the outer islands and villages are being drawn to the city in search of work to pay for these services. The only problem is there are no jobs to be had. 27-year-old Rene Nimisa is acutely aware that he lives in a world of haves and have-nots. Like thousands of others, Rene can't find steady work. Up in the hills in the shanty settlements behind town, he takes us to his family compound.
How many people live here?
I think 20.
20?
Yeah.
A decade ago, his parents sent him here from his home island of Tanna, investing the family's savings so he could finish high school, get a job and support his clan.
When the contract finishes, they usually...
His wife Gloria works 6 days a week serving tourists in a cafe.
And here it's too hard, it's too expensive to live here.
They can't even afford to keep the family together. One of their 2 daughters lives with grandparents back on Tanna. Rene wants more than this for his family, but there's never enough money.
This is my house.
But now there's hope.
Yeah, good.
For the first time in his life, the chance of a real job. Rene has been offered seasonal work picking fruit as part of a new guest worker scheme in New Zealand. He doesn't understand the details, but hopes for the best.
From look at money from suppose sometimes grow become them school people or career them and something we anything.
At the local club and casino, the guest workers anxiously await a briefing.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. Nice to see you all here. We'll have a roll call.
Kiwi expatriate Dick Eade is a contractor, hiring teams for New Zealand's bold experiment in labour mobility.
So I'm going to speak to you in English today because when you get down there, everybody will speak English. The tax on $750 would
Taxation, rent, fund transfers, even New Zealand's cold weather.
The employer is going to give you...
There's a bewildering amount of information to absorb. The men also learn that they're making history. Facing chronic labour shortages, last year New Zealand took 400 Pacific Islanders in a trial scheme called the Recognised Seasonal Employer Program, or RSE. It's been such a huge success that this year 5,000 workers from here, Kiribati, Tuvalu, Tonga, the Solomons and Samoa are all headed to the slice of heaven. They can stay for 7 months a year and will be paid the award rate of $12 an hour, the same as a New Zealand casual labourer. For these men, it's a fortune.
$12 an hour in New Zealand is 900 Vatu here. Now 900 vatu is 1 day's pay here, minimum. So they're earning in 1 hour what they would earn in 1 day here.
The beauty of this scheme is that remittances go directly to the villagers, bypassing the region's notoriously corrupt and incompetent governments.
That's what you call a wild yam.
Lionel Kaluat is Vanuatu's Labour Commissioner. Without a guest worker scheme, he sees a bleak future. He's watched the civil unrest in neighbouring Papua New Guinea and the Solomon Islands, and worries that expectations of the younger generation will not be met. Already 10,000 high school students graduate every year, with high hopes but little chance of employment. 800 Ni Vanuatu are now working in New Zealand, but he wants to send 5,000 abroad.
Is this, in one sense, a substitute for foreign aid?
Definitely, it's going to become the second biggest income earner for foreign income earner for Vanuatu. If we grow this seasonal worker to an extent where we get up to 5,000 workers, you're looking at probably leading the table in the foreign income exchange, apart from the tourism.
Soon, workers may also be heading for the bright lights of Australia. For decades, the idea of Pacific guest workers has been taboo in Canberra due to fears of illegal overstayers and the creation of a permanent underclass. But now the new Australian government is closely examining the New Zealand model. While Renee and the other labourers ultimately dream of working in Australia, they're wary of the past. This is a culture with a rich oral tradition, and everyone knows the story of when the white man first came from Australia. Arriving not as tourists, but as kidnappers, the so-called blackbirders. From the 1860s, more than 60,000 islanders were taken to cut sugarcane in Queensland. The elders remind Renee that some went willingly, but others were forced to leave at gunpoint.
O sa even wali karam wild cane koplo light lo night ko light from fish seg na mo pot di kam swing o semia krabong one putum no pot sa mo liron way krabong mo tuan sing out I ko lo bot finish
be you think so you mitras te mol white man ya pa no sa mega mol kan fashion all same before
meeting sem by all katalo white man or labors long well must pay with you lo you come back with them one money lo you misal make one development play me lo home island play me.
The big day has arrived. It's time for Dick Eads' team to leave for New Zealand.
There's a lot of joking business going on. I get called a blackbirder, which I deny and say I'm not, I'm a whitebirder.
For Renee, the excitement is tinged with sadness. He'll be away for 7 months before returning to carve out his little slice of heaven for his family. Pacific Islanders and Asians have been working in small ad hoc programs in New Zealand for 30 years. Many illegally. What's changed drastically is the scale and organisation of this scheme.
How are you? Good, welcome to New Zealand. We welcome you even though you wear an Aussie shirt.
Now, in New Zealand, there's a big emphasis on what's called pastoral care. And that's the job of Clive Exelby, manager of Ongateti Cool Stores, a company specialising in picking and packing kiwi fruit.
From the moment that they land in New Zealand, we have to make sure we don't have to necessarily pay for or provide for everything, but we have to make sure that every need is taken care of.
There's a quick introduction to New Zealand's culinary delights. Then a drive to the small township of Katikati on the North Island's Bay of Plenty. Home for the next 7 months will be this caravan park. The workers get their first hard lesson in the user pays economy.
This is a shower with a $2 slot for the water that you'll get. Nice warm water. Alternative, just over here, there's a cold stream. You can swim in the cold stream if you want it. Not for me, but you may like it.
And there will be other costs.
Now what we got here,
The men will have to repay half of their airfare and fork out for power, food and lodgings.
there are 6 vans that you will occupy, and you know which 3 are going in this van, 3 in the next one. You only have one key, one chance.
The vans are small and will be extremely cold in the New Zealand winter. But there are no complaints from Rene.
What do you think?
Very good. Very good.
We are audited on accommodation. New Zealand immigration people will come to make sure that we've complied with providing suitable accommodation for these people. It also means that we have to provide transport to and from the workplace and ability to get to cultural activities, taken to church on Sundays, all those type of things.
Clive Exelby takes his pastoral duties seriously. It turns out he's a former pastor of this evangelical church. But his team also has a few surprises. Of the 16 men, 3 are also Christian pastors. They've discreetly signed on as labourers to check out the scheme before recommending it to their congregations back home.
I want to hear our brothers from Vanuatu. I want to hear the name of Jesus in your language. I want to hear the people of God.
While most of the team get in the spirit of things,
I want to hear the name of Jesus lifted up.
Rene's not so sure.
1, 2, 3, Jesus! 1, 2, 3, Jesus! 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 You are worthy to be praised. Worthy of our honor. Lord, you are worthy this morning. Jesus.
Monday morning, and it's down to business. The gentle art of picking kiwi fruit. New Zealand horticulture depends on 40,000 seasonal workers each year.
Pull the straps and everything to make it fit through.
Finding staff was a near impossible task. Extremely low unemployment, unreliable backpacker labour, and a steady exodus of New Zealanders to Australia. The Pacific RSC scheme, says Clive Exelby, was born out of necessity.
The alternatives aren't worth bearing or even thinking about, you know. If you can't pack the fruit, what are you going to do? You can't get the work done. I mean, the growers losing, we as a company are going to lose, and New Zealand as a country would lose a tremendous amount of money.
Across the Tasman in Australia, labour shortages are costing fruit and vegetable producers $700 million a year in lost productivity.
So in here you can probably pick 2 fruit at once, like that.
But here the horticultural industry now has ambitious plans to nearly double production over the next 5 years.
But you can pick a bit faster like that.
All on the back of the RSC scheme.
There's 25,000 people in the Pacific alone who could come onto the workplace, both men and women at any time, and so our 5,000 are just really scraping the surface, you know.
One of the strongest arguments against guest worker schemes around the world is the contentious issue of illegal overstayers. New Zealand's solution? Labourers are the employer's responsibility. The logic being that a happy, well-paid guest worker is more likely to play by the rules and go home at the end of the contract.
So after their 7-month period here, we have to guarantee that they hop on the plane and go home. Otherwise, we will have to pay New Zealand Immigration up to $3,000 per person for them to find them in New Zealand and to put them out of the country.
Still, there have been problems. On the streets of Auckland, we join Melino Maka of the Tongan Advisory Council. He says most of the 50,000 Tongans in New Zealand live around here in the southern suburbs of Auckland. There are now also several hundred Tongan RSE guest workers in the country. Tonight, he's looking for one who's quit his job and is now wanted by the authorities.
I say just disregard anybody else. Think about you, your family, and what's best for you. Organize yourself to go back home before they deport you. Once they pick you up, you know you're gone.
We find Saya Oholele living in the garage of a suburban home. He claims he was hired under false pretences by another kiwi fruit company, brought in at the end of the picking season, and only paid for the few days worked each week.
By the time they take all their expenses, sometimes it's less than 100, sometimes they get 200, plus their living condition was a lot smaller than this for 5 of them, and they pay $1,000 a fortnight.
$1,000 a fortnight?
For a room, but same or smaller than this for 5 of them living in it.
Saya Oholele refuses to leave. But if immigration find him, he risks being deported and never being allowed back into the country. Another team of disillusioned Tongan workers has already quit and gone home. It's a fine line between opportunity and exploitation. Even the Tongans admit that Vanuatu has done a much better job at hiring workers. Back in Vanuatu, recruiter Dick Eade is on his way to check up on one of his successors.
Hey, Dick! Johnny! Apera, welcome back. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Johnny Tallio is just back from 4 months of strawberry picking near Auckland.
I mean, you know, I got back to
He's returned with $6,000.
So I'm planning to do some extension of my house.
The equivalent to 3 years' wages in Vanuatu. That's if you could ever find a job.
I built with the money from New Zealand when I came back.
Okay.
Yes. And that's the material. I just got it again for the extension of my house.
On the other end?
On the other end, yes. I got a cement, I got a timber here. Already got some iron roofs, yeah.
So this is the house that Strawberries built?
Yeah, that's the house. That's the Strawberries built, yeah. The Omaha Strawberries.
Omaha Strawberries, that's right.
Here it's difficult to see any losers with this scheme. The results for these villagers are tangible.
Would you like some water?
It's like the ripples in the pond. There's that one guy that I'm sending, but he's influencing or having an effect on a whole ring of people like the ripples in the pond.
Fresh from the farm.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Maybe one person's having an effect on perhaps 10 or 20 people back here, and it's good to see.
Over the decades, Australian and New Zealand officials have poured billions of aid dollars into the troubled Pacific region, often with questionable results. Perhaps this simple labour program may finally provide a true course to that elusive Pacific solution.